Howdy, Joe here, and ever so pleased to say, hey, um, gosh, I'm in a wheelchair and have been for years. It's a bit of a slow and awkward way to get around, but mobility is valuable and I enjoy getting around. Um, yes, I've got a number of disabilities, but I also have abilities, a whole bunch of them. And one of them is slowly, how to gosh, gosh, I don't mind my own appearance, but I don't find myself particularly compelling visually. Um, but sometimes I can chat up a storm, and I'm hoping to be communicative and engaging and intelligent and maybe amusing and maybe musical a bit. Uh, but wanted to kind of step out of the picture for the moment to show a bit of where I live. My name's Joe, and I live in Vancouver. And so I call myself Joe Van, a person, a place. What are we? Those are two things. And this picture is the Lions Gate in Vancouver, the Lions Gate Bridge, the gate, the front door of the city. And like the Golden Gate in San Francisco, but actually it's got a much earlier uh, connection because there are many other cities with Lions Gates, and one is Mycenae, the pre-Greek culture, like before Helen of Troy, and also there are Lions Gates at Persepolis in ancient Persia, and in Jerusalem, and in China, and many, many other places. It's funny how the metaphor of a strong carnivore to guard the gates, like the king of the jungle, or anyways, the senior predator keeps an eye on security. And it seems an interesting facet of civilization. And actually, civilization is one of the things we'll be talking about here. Civility, civil ability, communication. Can we talk? And can we talk is it's a signature tagline for a comedian, Joan Rivers. And she had a lot of things not just to laugh about, but to be insightful about, to see through and share. So can we talk? Resonates with me and hopefully with you. And geez, I'm using $1 trillion communications network that spans the planet. to talk to another person. You, hey, how you doing? And this communication network, the internet, um, has another name from another fellow called Teilhard de Chardin, uh, a mystic scientist who felt an aspiration of evolution toward a kind of noosphere, a global network of knowledge and communication. And so the internet is kind of a step up and into that, nearly an evolutionary step. It's um, quite extraordinary when you give it some contemplation and feel the scope of it. It's immense. And through that, this individual communicates with this individual. You, God, isn't that kind of amazing? Anyways, what I'm proposing here is a bit of a communication course because this is a new tool, more than a tool, whole environment and multiple vectors of play all happening at once. And a communications course is learning how to use this just to get through. Gosh. The details of being disabled. It's always got glitches. Um, my urinal slipped down. I gotta solve something before it becomes a puddle. Give me a sec. Golly, solve it. I can catch a fallen urinal before it spills. Being disabled has lots of difficulties, uh, humilities. I prefer humility to humiliation. That's a bit of a slogan I use sometimes. And another aspect of disability is repeatedly needing to ask for help and receive help in an engaging way that keeps things going. I try to maintain as much autonomy and self-control, doing my shopping and cooking and admin and maintaining this life in 1,000 ways. But I also get a carried visit morning and night to help me with a few things and to transition between bed and wheels. And that's the scope of my life is in between bed and wheel. Kind of a constricted range. But I use the internet and proxy travel anywhere I want. And I've got a lively mind a noggin that works sometimes, and enjoy exploring the culture, the art, the beauty, and the problems and solutions that we continually negotiate in the processes of life. Um, so, geez, so what I'm proposing here, what I have in mind here in late April 2024 is a communications course of collecting some piles of chatter from me and maybe with others and maybe about many other things. But to collect an assortment of thoughts and points of view that others may find not just revelatory or engaging, but an invitation to a deeper and wider conversation. Gosh. And and I'm not reading from a script. I'm speaking off the cuff, extemporaneous. In other words, of the moment, of this heart and this spirit, this air, and this noggin. And okay, so that's a light introduction. And where to start as a topic? Here it is, late April. And there was an eclipse earlier this month, and it was extraordinary. But there are aspects of it that nobody else seems to notice or mention. And there are what images and understanding of it uh, there's a shortfall in both imagery and understanding that for me feels a need for filling in. There's a gap, there's a hole, there's a whole load of ignorance that just passing by. Gosh. Um, okay. April 8th, there was a total solar eclipse that went from Mexico to New England and the Maritimes in Canada and almost across the Atlantic to Ireland and Wales. They could see the tail end of it. Um, I gotta mention bona fides, good faith, as in credentials for being able to talk about the sky at all. And I'm a little person in a wheelchair with arthritis and haven't had much in the way of academic physics and astronomy. Uh, and I didn't pass calculus. And so I'm a bit of a disabled astronomer, but not without anything. Uh, there's a book you can look up called The Dork of Court, and it's by an author, Chet Ramo. And He's an astronomer and professor, a physicist, and the Dork of Court, he wrote a novel about a little person who loved the sky and could point out thousands of details of things to notice and appreciate. And it's kind of an episodic novel, picaresque, as in discrete episodes of a life from birth to marriage, actually, in that story. Frankie, Frank Bois. Frank Bois in French means wood. So I kind of think of him as related to maybe Natalie Wood or the thing is that The Dork of Court, the novel, was turned into a movie, Frankie Starlight. And it's a beautiful little story about a little person who loves the sky. And you can look it up on Wikipedia and maybe even find and download it. Might be some scenes on YouTube. Uh, the thing is I've been fond of the sky all my life. And when I was 10 or 11, I made up a constellation of an ocean liner crossing an ocean. And it was an Art Deco steamship that was all prow and funnels and the cutting of the prow through the ocean. And it was only 3 stars, and I can find them even now. But the classical sky does have some boats, but no steamships because engines hadn't been invented yet. And an Art Deco dynamo gave some vigor to me, to that ocean of sky over us. And Frankie, uh, well, Chet Ramo, the author of Frankie Starlight, has textbooks of star guides and essays on science. And he's got a website still up long after he's passed, collecting thoughts and details about the facts and principles of the physical universe and of our place within it. Science Musings is his website, even though he passed some years ago. I've a great affection for his work, actually, to the degree that I feel him to be a foster parent to me. And his little person sketch is nearly a calling card that I've used to give to people to buy them a clue as to how and why and what I am. In other words, a little feature of identity in a book and a movie. Um, but it's not a carbon copy, and the variations between Joe and Frankie are numerous and considerable. Um, but before getting into all that, the thing about the eclipse that just recently passed, that's passing unmentioned, is that it was also a conversion, a, a gathering of planets. As a matter of fact, the planets on view during the eclipse, that 4 minute moment of darkness that visits the day, was quite amazing because all seven of the wanderers were in a startlingly tight gathering. And the wanderers is an old reference to the planets. And it gives a nod back to the Babylonians and other ancient cultures. We've been living with the sky for a long time, and we notice a lot of things, but some of those lapse and fall away, but some stick around. Um, the Wanderers was a reference to the fact that the sky is mostly immovable. Well, the patterns of the stars don't change. They're called the firmament, as in the stars are far older than we are, and they live at a different time span. And the vast night sky has such a profound stillness to our way of seeing. But there are exceptions. Some things move, and the wanderers that the ancients saw and puzzled over were seven. Um, there's the sun. It moves across the sky every day. The moon, it moves across the sky every day and every month. And then the other wanderers visible to the ancients were Jupiter and Venus and Mars and Saturn and Mercury. And they can be seen in the sky. And they're not stars. The word they used back then, planet, meant wanderers, things that moved against the firmament. And much later, words get new meanings, new layers, things are added and things fall away. Words are malleable over time. And planets, the sun we came to saw, is the center of the solar system. Sol system, the solar system. So the sun is the center, and all the other wanderers are in motion around it, including us. Um, the moon has been a part of our not just consciousness. It's a reminder of the tide, but also a reminder of the flow of blood for the female of our species. We evolved here. We're connected with the moon. And some like to notice it, some don't. Um, then Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Venus, and Mercury, those were each thought to be powers in the sky with attributes and maybe projection. Anyway, more to the point at the moment is that the wanderers were seven, and those seven became the foundation for our days of the week: Sun Day, Moon Day, Mars Day. There's some dispute over Wednesday and Thursday. In English, Woden's Day refers to Odin, which is kind of Jove, which is kind of Jupiter. But in French, it's Mercredi, which refers to Mercury, which is the messenger. And in English, that got bumped to Thursday, Thor's Day. And Thor may be a messenger to Odin, but gosh. And then there's Friday, Venus, Freya, Odin's wife, the female of love. And then Saturday, Saturn. The obvious ones are Sunday, Moon Day, Monday, and Saturday. Those are very clear references to the sky. These dancing figures we live with, and we notice them. But most people have been alienated from these connections. And gee, so current understanding, the sun is not a planet, it's the center of the orbital system, this solar system. And the moon is not a planet because it orbits the Earth. We didn't see that before, but we see it now. More will be revealed. In other words, we're learning. And another aspect of what is or is not a planet, Pluto was recently deleted from the status of planet. It's a planetesimal. It's a visitor from the Oort cloud. And even though it has a moon, other members out in the Oort cloud have moons too. And another disjunction from the community of planets for Pluto was that its orbit is considerably at odds from the solar system plane, which is the ecliptic. Most of the planets of the solar system sit within a platter, a plane, which is evidence of its membership in the community from the time when the solar system condensed out of a celestial cloud of dust. Uh, and that's going kind of far back in it. Uh, okay, so I'm looking for a picture that kind of captures that moment properly, that includes it was Jupiter, and then near the moon and the sun in conjunction of the eclipse, right beside it is Mercury. Then the moon and the sun kind of center, um, and then moving toward the other side is Venus, Saturn, and Mars. And so all seven of the classic wanderers were together in a narrow high slice of the whole circuit of the sky. The whole round of the sky is 360 degrees. And the 360 degrees on the compass and the navigation, that comes from the Babylonian and the Sumerian. They kind of like the number 360, but for all the ways in which it's divisible. But it was an attempt to capture in a number the range of the world in a year. 360 is close to, very close to 365 and a quarter. In other words, it's a great attempt by the ancients to measure the scope of the year and of the world, and to understand and be with the sky. And and so the sky is kind of big, 360 degrees, but from in the eclipse picture, the seven wanderers are all of them within the scope of, I'm not sure if it's more than or less than 50 degrees. So that's about a seventh of the sky. And that's rather tight for seven wanderers to be in that narrow of a scope. And to have all of them together is a beautiful reminder of the days of the week. And to add to that, the passing shadow of the moon, bringing in a darkness with which to glimpse them. You can't see the planets in the daytime. You can only see them in the dark, except during an eclipse. And to see all the visible ones, even though Mercury was approaching a transit. In other words, it was just a slender arc of light. Um, it was there. Then three of them were only trace visible. You had to know what you're looking for to see them. But uh, a filtered and illuminated illustration should be able to bring them all forward. Um, gosh, I need to collect a few thoughts. I don't want to make dead air. Hope you're well. Be back next time. Another aspect of the eclipse that I gotta mention is that in the totality, in the depths of the shadow, you're able to see around the moon the corona. And this is energy surging out from the sun. And a great deal of it is the fourth state of matter. Matter has solid, fluid, and gas. Those are three states of matter. And there's a fourth state of matter called plasma. And this is at a stellar or cosmological range. And plasma has seems to be the place where the surge of energy, acceleration to expand resides. And this plasma effect seems to me to be an aspect of the universe's acceleration in expansion. And it's something that I sometimes rub my noggin on trying to understand. And bigger than I am. But to see plasma and expansion in a perceivable way through the plasma, through the corona of the sun, the vigor of it, the solar wind hits the atmosphere and bends it. That vigor, energy, surge is another aspect of the universe as intimate and close to us as gravity, as an attribute of nature, attraction, you know, that things fall with weight, but things fly with plasma, with light. And to consider the speed of light constant having a relationship to something with the capacity to accelerate is a riddle to ruminate on. And I need to confess, there's lots I don't know. The extent of my ignorance is far larger than the extent of my knowledge. But I've got a noggin and I can think and I can see and I can share. So, okay. Buddy, had a bit of supper. I'm now in bed. Carriage come and gone. And oh, bit of lemonade, I guess. Actually, I've got a lemon ginger mix going right now, and it's quite delicious. Um, okay, so I was mentioning the sky and some recent events, and just in my step out and back, I actually did a peek and at Wikipedia Chet Ramo, and he's still alive. Gosh, um, howdy, uh, a little person stargazer from Vancouver, and as in Ireland, it's often cloudy or rainy here. Actually, it's both right now, and I barely glimpsed the moon this passing through a hazy cloud at one point. But I don't get out under the actual sky at night much anymore. Well, with the carriage transfers, usually I've got to be home rather than out. And so I do most of my stargazing by proxy through the internet. And I'll visit the Atacama Desert in Chile or Mauna Loa in Hawaii or the Hubble or the Webb, uh, the James Webb Telescope, that is. And so many other things. There are so many things with which to occupy the mind. Sometimes it's difficult to pull oneself into a coherent focus. There's so many things going on. But Chet Remo, gosh, I'm so pleased and joyous to see you still live. And I wanted to, I know, gosh, so many times your prose has turned into poetry that I've loved your writing many times. And uh, I've got a smidge of Irish background myself, and I enjoy that part of you. And I've never been further east than Coney Island Beach and Montreal. So nowhere near the Emerald Isle. But if you know Vancouver, you know that there's Guinness money here that actually built the Lionsgate Bridge and owns British property stuff. A big part of the neighborhood that maybe doesn't get much mention. Anyway, that's just a nod to multiple Irish connection. Uh, and one of the gifts that I want to thank you for is in particular, and it's eclipse related, is that every orb that orbits the sun has a conical shadow, a cone of darkness, which is smaller than the span of the sunlight. And because the sun is so much larger than each orb, every shadow around it is pointed. Not, it's also some spread, but they're pointed and limited. And that essay in The Soul of the Night, where you describe the sun wearing a halo of shadow cone, it's stayed with me ever since, and it's improved my ability to see the sky because I see not just night and bright, but the shadow, the intermediary. Uh, you've expanded my scope of vision and appreciation for the cosmic dance. Like, we had a glimpse of one of the shadows for a few, less than a handful of minutes, and yet there are not just 8 or dozens, there are thousands, even millions when you get to the asteroid and the Oort cloud. Millions and millions of shadow cones dancing around the sun. And Thanks for the expansion of vision. Uh, with a nod to that, I actually, a little something about that reminded me of a lyric, a poem, and I added another line to a classic poem. In other words, kind of being a part of the family sort of thing. And it's one of the lyrics from Danny Boy. Oh, Danny Boy. In sunshine or in shadow is the lyric to which I add a few bits. The sun wears a halo of shadows. And that's a little bit poetic and musical and sweet. But it's just a little reminder that the cosmic dance has multiple flavors of eclipses going on all the time. And these aren't just individual event moments, they are also in motion, as in dancing. And when I'm out under the night sky with a vast scope of vision, I like to feel the dancing. And gee, just by the way, did you notice the 7 wanderers in a cluster at a moment? And did it warrant significant comment from you? Um, and gee, I'm too amateur to know how much in or outside 50 degrees for all 7 wanderers. Um, I'm not quite educated enough for those tools, but it's a reminder. I know that it's considerably tighter than 60 degrees, but I don't know if it's as tight as 45 degrees. And 45 degrees is, you know, cuts the pie in 8. And it's kind of sweet to notice. And that again is a reminder that the orbital angle varies around half of 45 degrees, as in 22.5 degrees. And that's 1/16th of the pi. And that seems to me not just mathematically beautiful, but maybe even other kinds of significant. In other words, it's quite remarkable around here, ain't it? Um, anyways, I thought you might like just that little line of poetry, and I'll repeat it. In sunshine or in shadow, the sun wears a halo of shadow. Gee, thank you kindly. And golly, oh yes. So I'd like a picture, clear and beautiful, of the 7 wanderers in a cluster with the coronal plasma on display. And whether to include or not the comet and discuss it, Actually, I haven't even looked at its current orbit and range. Um, Visitors from the Oort cloud are often, and and uh, gosh. Anyway, uh, a visit a visit to the contemporary sky. Um, it's a reminder to me that in this time of year, actually, we're a bit on the latter range of it. One of my, as I say, with the wheelchair, I don't make it out at night much anymore. But something I used to do, um, kind of in the middle spring and also in the middle fall, um, is go out and watch the transitions from the winter triangle and the summer triangle. These are two asterisms that call them the amateur's key to the sky. Um, they're on opposite sides of the sky, which is something to know about. And they're the brightest three stars in the sky for the seasons they're named for. And the winter triangle is about to leave, and the summer in the early evening, and the summer triangle is on its way in the pre-morning. And so if you're going to be a stargazer, you kind of got to know both sides of the night, the evening and the morning. And the spring and the fall are a great time to shake hands with two of the biggest signposts or guide marks in the sky. And these asterisms only go back about a century, maybe two, and it was for people who live in cities with streetlights lose a lot of the detail in the night sky. And so when folks who know about the sky talk about anything, right, city folk can't see anything that they recognize. And so the asterisms are the three brightest in the big triangle. And the winter triangle, gosh, give me a minute. Golly, hey dude, I found uh the winter triangle, which is currently setting in the west in the evening as the summer's rising tide of light shortens the night. The summer triangle goes behind the sun. And isn't it nifty? Someone in a wheelchair can share a hunk of the night sky with someone on the other side of the planet. Golly. Anyways, I want to step out of the picture here for a moment and I'll describe it a bit and then move on to next. Okay. Uh, on the right, there's Orion and that orange, the big orange, yellow, not quite red. That's Betelgeuse that's been in the news a lot lately because astronomers are seeing signals that it's moving towards supernova, that it may soon explode. And in uh, astronomical range, they're talking soon is anywhere in the next today to 100,000 years. And so that's an immense span of time. And I've mentioned that this is a bit of a step in communications course for me right now. But I want to mention a flaw in this display is that it doesn't quite show you the full image on the screen here. Because down below here, just below the margin, is Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, and the brightest twinkler, and the third bright star in the winter triangle. Anyways, on the right side, Orion, the this is the most obvious constellation, actually, maybe even more so than the triangle because of the belt. But Orion has several characterizations in different cultures. Sometimes as a kind of Diana huntress, and but this is Orion the hunter, and he has a sword and a belt and shoulders and knees, and the hunter has two traveling companions. The main dog star is Sirius down below, and the little dog is Procyon on the left side upper. And so Orion has two companions, Sirius and Procyon. And the winter triangle is Sirius, Procyon, and Betelgeuse. And it's almost exactly equilateral. And to me, it reminds me of the service triangle or the recovery triangle, which is recovery, unity, and service. And that's a nod to the fact that I'm more than a bit acquainted with the history of the bottle and the need for recovery. And it's an active part of my life, and it's my cosmology contains a reminder of it right there in the sky. And recovery means getting back something of value that you've lost or healing from an illness. And one of the aspects of that is that healing can take a long time and that recovery requires engagement in a process of whatever it involves at the time. And sometimes a part of that is maybe a communications course. And so, along with recovery is unity, and that means you're not alone. You got some company. You can ask for help. Gosh. And you can meet up with folks sometimes and bounce around and exercise in honesty. And it can be beautiful. So remember, you're not alone. Don't just be a me, be a we once in a while. Just a gentle reminder. And service. Every once in a while, someone's got to pick up some of the chores. You know, there's things in need of doing. And sometimes it's in those chores we find new skills, new relationships, and new understanding, not just of others, bit of ourselves. And to me, it seems those things are kindly or gently worth a gentle reminder. And particularly in the backdrop of the winter sky, the winter triangle stands forward much more vibrantly than this summer triangle, because actually the night sky is even darker in the winter. The summer night sky has uh, a kind of backwash of nearer sunlight kind of thing. So the thing is that perhaps when the nights seem darkest, uh, those things might seem worth remembering and exercising. And golly, so many other things in play here. The Orion Nebula is one of the easiest nebulas to find. And in some of the metaphors, it's Orion's sword. But being a gay guy, of course, I think he's really well hung. And the dog companions. Oh, there's so much else here too. Um, if you get your binoculars, I can't recite off the top of my head the names of the three stars of the belt. But they're all from Arabic, and a reminder that 80% of the catalog of the sky is actually in Arabic, because those desert nights and studious academic period of the Islamic experience did generate a catalog, the sky. Anyway, all three of them begin with an L, and but below the well, toward the sword, from the left one, if you get your binoculars and look around that neck of the woods, you'll see the Horsehead Nebula, and that's a long cloud of ash in the shape of, from our perspective, what might be projected as a horse's head against a backdrop of a nebula, of a cloud of plasma, illuminated. And so it's a dark shadow against a field of light. And it's, and there's so many other hunks of beauty. One of the other guides from this sector of the sky is, you notice that Sirius is down a certain distance from the belt, and the belt is pointing to Sirius. Well, if you go the other way from the belt, 2 steps, what you did to Sirius, you'll be in the ballpark of Pleiades, the Seven Sisters, a star cluster, and a field of vision and of myth. And there's so much that you can explore from this field of the sky. Okay, so I don't want to go on too much about that. I'm going to go into the summer triangle next. Golly, so my display for the summer triangle is not very good. Doesn't pass muster for me. So I grabbed it from the Wikipedia page. You can go off and browse other material, but I'm gonna just switch my screen and read you a bit and tell you a bit about the summer triangle and why it's a little bit about why it's worth knowing about. And the three points of the triangle are Deneb, Vega, and Altair. And they're the brightest three stars in the summer sky. They'll once you and they're in the form of a right triangle. Okay. And that means one of them is very close to 90 degrees. It's not quite perfect, and it may depend on your angle of view. Sometimes that has a change in the play of the angle of a triangle. Anyway, it's very close to a right triangle, and that for me is a reminder of Pythagoras and the Pythagorean theorem, the right triangle, the hypotenuse, the square, the squares add up, as in the square of one side plus the other adds up to the square of the hypotenuse. And this invites a reminder of Pythagoras and his teaching methods and the frequency with which the Greeks exercised fasting as a means of focus and learning, and that the school that Pythagoras ran actually encouraged the exercise of the fasted mind. And that means going a day or days without food, just water and maybe salt. Anyway, that kind of metabolic change actually does bring a more energized focus. And it can be brought to exercise with discipline. And another of the reasons I remind myself of this with Pythagoras is that a squared plus b squared equals c squared is kind of the beginnings of mathematics and calculus and geography and rationality and evidence and proof. Proof. What the fact that they found tools with which to generate proof to reduce or remove doubt. Oh. Anyways, a part of recalling that is that formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared is that math matters, that measuring matters, that thinking matters. And that one can grab onto something of substance and understanding in the world and the universe with work and exercise and play and communication. And so it's not quite a perfect right triangle, just like the other one ain't like a perfect equilateral triangle, but they're both close enough to be emphatic reminders. And gosh, another thing that this one reminds me of is that having a sense of proportion matters, and that the exercise of that sense of proportion means exercising discernment between what matters a lot and what matters less, or not at all, or gee, maybe that reminder exercising humility, the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, you know? And that was written by Reinhold Niebuhr, who was doing a kind of studious abridgment of the what's it called, Epictetus's um handbook. Uh, it's got an odd handle, and it'll come back to me eventually. But they're lovely thoughts to juggle with and invite exercise. Anyways, Golly, I'm gonna change backgrounds again. Um, and whoops. Oh, right. Sorry. I'm gonna change backgrounds again to oh gosh, I got piles to choose from. Back to Lionsgate, just to keep things simple. Um, now, why do I mention both the winter and summer triangle at this time of the year? They're worth a visit with, because it, as I mentioned, I do it in the spring and I do it in the summer. Give a nod to both as they are leaving or coming. Um, and it's kind of to, oh, it's the April to August. Um, I think other cultures may have given a nod to Sirius in this regard as well. Because the winter triangle is going behind the sun for about 4 months, maybe five, 4.5, maybe five, depending on where you are, and how observant you are. Uh, and Sirius is the brightest star, the brightest sparkler in the sky, and it's gone for a while. And so I kind of feel a nudge to um, maybe sparkle a bit brighter while it's away, or uh, like April to August through the brightest part of the year, and maybe the most active for some of us. I find winters to be semi-dormant. Anyway, so a season of vigorousness from April to August, maybe getting busy and making myself useful in some regard, and maybe giving a nod to the sky and sharing it. Geez, uh, and I know that a lot of people don't know much from the sky, kind of thing. Um, but it's good to live with and make room for. And a particular thing I've got an affection for is when the tide of light and dark is changing, when you're out and about at dawn or dusk, the light gets dramatic and emphatic and beautiful. Uh, and things move swiftly. You can sometimes nearly feel the rotation of the world. And I find it a good thing to make those moments a part of my life with conscious attention. And the nod to the winter and summer triangle, well, I'll probably be doing that by proxy this year. I'll do some scouting. But I just wanted to say hey, and oh, I made a slight revision to that line of poetry. Um, in sunshine or in shadow, the sun wears a halo of shadow cones. I wanted to do both a nod on the detail of that to Chet and also point out that it's a halo of thorns that are pointing away and leaving room for the light of the universe to come in. And wow. Anyway, a little bit of chatter in a communications course, and maybe you can do some digging around some things like science musings or the dork of cork. But just by way of getting acquainted, hey do and howdy. Um, howdy is an acronym I'm going to bring up another time. Um, it stands for honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, do you. In other words, they're not theoretical, they're active engagement items. And geez, I guess there's other things to do besides visit the gym, eh? Anyways, it's a stellar, glorious day. And there seems so many other things that I need to queue up to talk about. War, insanity, um, gee, the need for recovery, and a variety of other things. Um, and that takes maybe a bit of rumination or exercise in proportion. Um, before I try and phrase something eloquent. I'll, I guess. Anyway, lovely to get acquainted. Hope you're well. Be well. Ciao. Night or evening.